This is synchronicity.
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 Welcome to Synchronicity. No guest again this week, but I have very good news. The news is have a babysitter. She's downstairs with Eli right now and getting Eli in daycare pretty soon. So my life is beginning to return to some form of normalcy, which means synchronicity will be returning to some form of normalcy in the near future, which means guests. Me not just talking about cryptocurrency all of the time, although I'm certainly going to be talking about it for a lot of reasons, as I'm sure you guys realize at this point. But yeah, we're going to be getting back to normal. So that's it. I just wanted to say thank you. Not that's it for this episode, but that's what I wanted to communicate. I did want to thank all of you who've kind of gone through this hibernation period with Synchronicity while cryptocurrency has kind of been reshaping my life and the lives of many other people. You know, I realized this kind of got lost in the shuffle. It's hard with a kid, another business, the podcast, all these things going on. It's been hard to juggle them, but now that I kind of feel the release of many of these things with not having to constantly look after Eli 24/7, that's going to be a big thing for me personally, and I hope for this podcast. So really looking forward to getting some more guests in again. You know, it's been a transformative experience over the 2+ years, of doing this. It's changed my life in so many ways. I've expanded my network, although I never intended this to be kind of like a network expanding endeavor. I've met so many incredible people offering such a wide array of perspectives and opinions. And just, it's always good to connect with people who both agree with you and don't agree with you. So that's, I'm just looking forward to getting back to it. I wanted to update you guys on the Patreon stuff. So I just got a really sweet piece of gear. It's coming tomorrow. It's made by a company called Electron. It's called the Rhythm Mark II. It's an analog drum processing and beat machine. I'm super stoked for this. The reason I'm bringing it up is I am going to be working on music. Yes, that is coming again. I was doing it just before I recorded this. I'm really, really, really looking forward to getting stuff out. That EP that I've been talking about still exists. I wasn't making it up. It's going to be coming out soon. And as soon as I have some time to finish this stuff up, it's going to be out. So I will be putting music into the Patreon music folder. If you're a subscriber or a patron on Patreon, stay tuned for that. I'm going to be getting a lot of stuff out there. I've been working on stuff periodically over the past few months, but I haven't had a ton of time to go through and do a lot of stuff. That said, that is about to change. So yeah, man, I don't know. I didn't really have any plans for this one. I just wanted to get something out this week because I realized that it's been shifting in terms of what's going on. Here we go. I just remembered what I was going to talk about. Sorry for the abrupt non sequitur that's about to happen. So I want to talk about the 8 karmic winds and specifically how they relate to cryptocurrency. So if you don't care about Buddhism or cryptocurrency, this would be your cue to turn out, and I'll see you next week. If you do, let's talk about the 8 karmic winds first. So the 8 karmic winds, and let's see if I can remember them. I tried to teach myself them the other day, but if I don't, I'll just Google them. So the first one, they come in groups of 2. So the first karmic wind would be the desire for pleasure. And the second karmic wind would be the fear of pain or suffering. So they kind of come in these pairs. So those are the first 2. The second would be the gaining of wealth, right? That's the second. The third, rather. The fourth would be the loss of that wealth, or the fear of the loss of that wealth. The fifth is, what is the fifth? See, I'm trying to train myself to remember these. The fifth is the love of praise, right? Praise. And the sixth one is the fear of blame, or experiencing being blamed for something. And then the seventh is the desire for fame. And then the last one, the 8th, is the loss of that fame or being irrelevant. So those are the 8 karmic winds. And the theory is if any of these winds are blowing internally, your ego is stirred, is aroused, and then it begins to kind of dictate and dominate your life. And a point on the ego, we're not trying to eliminate the ego. I've spoken about this a little bit before. We're not trying to beat it into submission. We're trying to relate to it and understand what its function is in our lives and how it can help us. It's like anything. Like, you've ever had a really annoying friend who's always just making nasty comments. And then like one day you find out that they were actually going through something really difficult, and you can kind of understand that maybe there's a function for what they're doing. The annoying comments aren't appreciated, but maybe that same energy could be directed towards something constructive, and they can help you or you can help them. Not the best analogy, but you know what I'm saying. So essentially, these karmic winds, if they're being blown, any of those 8 things I mentioned, the ego is going to be aroused, and it's going to start kind of taking over your life and being the kind of the focal point of all your decisions. So the reason I've been thinking about this is I'm reading also an excellent book. I'm rereading it, and somehow I ended up with 2 copies, and I don't know. I'm only saying this half jokingly. I'm going to investigate it. I don't think I ordered 2 copies of it, because that really wouldn't make sense, and I never do that. But I have 2 copies of the book, and I'm trying to discover, did it just manifest? Did it duplicate itself? It's really weird. I got to get to the bottom of it. But the book is Goddesses by Joseph Campbell. It's an amazing book. It was published posthumously. Some of it isn't as cogent as his other writings because it was published posthumously and I think was taken from notes, but it is so, so good. And one of the things he mentions the 8 karmic winds, and he mentions art having a function and, casting a mirror up to society and culture and people so they can view, the divine in themselves. It's a very awesome book. And now I'm trying to remember the reason that I brought it up. Oh, yes. The cryptosphere. So I've been telling people to read this book, or mentioning or suggesting that they read this book if they're getting into cryptocurrency. Because as you know, I've been talking about quite some time, over a decade, but on this podcast over a couple of years, about the reemergence of the feminine divine, and particularly the moon and all of these different things we associate, not with femininity as we understand it in a cultural sense, but feminine principles that are at the root of many of our mythologies, whether we recognize it or not, and how for the past several thousands of years at least, the feminine principles and qualities have been subjugated, not only in culture and society, but in our mythologies. So I was reading a very interesting thing in the book where it was saying, related to Pandora, right? You hear Pandora. Pandora gets a really bad rap because the real story of Pandora, which we actually can trace back to historical artifacts and inscriptions, isn't what we've been led to believe, which is Pandora was, we opened the box and all these horrible things came out, and we get this little inkling that hope was at the end. But for the most part, it's looked at it as a very, don't open Pandora's box. Bad shit's going to happen. Chaos is going to be unfolded. Well, Pandora actually, in the mother goddess, in the maternal traditions, was a very benevolent figure who was coming to reveal lots of positive qualities in the world. So it's interesting how these mythologies that we kind of culturally identify with or have in our psyche maybe aren't actually what the roots are. And this creates a schism in our consciousness. So the reason I'm bringing this up related to cryptocurrency is I think we're seeing, this is a wave, in my opinion, of something that's happening. This has nothing to do with price, of volatility. Well, maybe volatility, but really this isn't about making money. It's not about the technicals or fundamentals of cryptocurrencies. It's about that this is something that is slowly but surely, and not even all that slowly, undermining, changing, evolving, whatever you want to call it, our current economic paradigm. And that is what makes the world go around right now. It's money. Not even unfortunately, it's just that's the way of the world right now. We can bitch and moan about it if we want, but for the most part, it's just what's going on. So it's not the worst thing in the world. We just have to figure out what's going on. I still think there's a lot of people who don't understand what's happening. I think they maybe think that I've just lost my mind and a lot of other people have. And, we're just trying to get rich quick and blah, 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 blah. Whatever it is, trust me when I say this, as time moves on, this will become more clear in the cultural sense. But I don't want all of this to get lost in the broader kind of internal sense. One of the main reasons that cryptocurrency has continued to capture my imagination and, my focus is that as a life tool for being able to relate to this stuff, there is something happening here. This is changing people. And I don't mean that it's making everyone a better person, but the people who seem to have found some stability in their lives, maybe through psychedelics or meditation or yoga or whatever it is, music, art, those people have really put in a lot of internal work. Their relationship to the cryptocurrency world is very, very different from people who are maybe in the cryptocurrency world but have done none of that and are just trying to get their Lambos or prove their ego or whatever it is. And I think that's an important distinction. When you hear the episodes of me talking about, and bleeping out the amount of money I made and all of these things, I'm not putting that out there to brag or to be like, wow, this is incredible. You should do this. If you're not, you're an idiot. I'm doing it because the liberation that it's provided me, and that I think, quite honestly, can provide for pretty much everyone. And I think will ultimately do that. I don't think in the next few years, but, by the time Eli is my age, I imagine the concept of a job will seem quite different than it does now. And I was having this discussion with Alexis the other day, and she thought I was crazy. And it's quite possible that I am crazy. But the truth is that I think as we move towards a more sustainable and equitable future, first, we're going to have to undo a lot of these knots that exist. And I don't think this is going to be easy. And I don't want to make it seem like this is definitely happening. But at this point, it does kind of seem like we've hit the tipping point, whether people recognize it or not. And I'm not just talking about the price of Bitcoin and altcoins. It's that people who have been in this, some as shortly as a month or even a few weeks, something happens. You're right. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably at least identify with the concept of the world not being what it seems, right? What we perceive with our five senses isn't the totality of our world. It's not the totality of our experience either, whether we recognize it or not. This is a big attempt to pull a major veil off the world's eyes. And the trick is when you realize that this is happening, is to not get overly zealous about it, but also not to dismiss it as out of hand because it doesn't fit within, your current understanding of the world. And I know this is a lot of babbling and kind of platitudes being bandied about, but trust me when I say this, and everyone in the CryptoSync server and everyone who's been tuning in and my friends, they know this isn't just based on some pipe dream. And if anyone was going to have pipe dreams, it would be me. And I'm quite aware of when things don't feel substantive, right? And they feel like maybe you're chasing or hoping. And it's why I never went into stocks. It's why I, never really chased money-making opportunities per se. Here's the truth. I was a digital marketer for 6 years. I could have made a lot of money working for a lot of different companies who needed my services, period. It's not even a question. I was really good at what I did. I chose to work with nonprofits and other organizations primarily because I vibed more with their, ethical. We'll get into ethics another time, but I vibed with it more than people who were just out to make money. Much to my chagrin, some of those organizations were just in it for the same reasons as Monsanto and all of these other companies are, whether they recognize it or not. But my point is that if it was just about making money, there's a lot of different ways to do that. They might not be fun ways. They might not be anything, but there are different ways that one can make money in this world. This isn't about making money to me. Yes, we are, but it's about kind of changing our psyches using a major cultural tool, which is money, to kind of stabilize our internal selves. This is weird. I know it sounds like we're trying to mash two things together that don't seem like they should be mashed together, but trust me when I say I'd put a few things up there in terms of helping me move towards the type of person I would want to be, which is a more calm, a more equanimity in my life, less quick, more patience, quick to anger, far less, right? I put a few things there. One of them about was microdosing LSD. That was a game-changing regimen that I did for 3 months. Absolutely changed so much for me, and was just really pleasant. I'd put cannabis up there. I'd be lying if I didn't. And I'd put cryptocurrency as the third thing, which seems like it doesn't fit. And I'd put meditation there and chanting. And praying. Okay, so I just added 5: chanting, praying, weed, microdosing, and cryptocurrency. I mean this. I've thought about this. I like you, hopefully, try to check in with myself and see how I'm doing, right? I know when I'm feeling freaked out. I know when I'm feeling nervous. I know when I'm afraid. I know when I'm stressed. I know when I'm happy. I know when I'm grateful. I try to keep track of these things and see if they're relational. So does that mean they're relatively set up? Are they conditional on something, or are they being brought about by some deeper changes? To me, cryptocurrency has provided this opportunity. So, okay. Look, I did it. I'm sorry, guys. The 8 karmic wins quickly turned into cryptocurrency. Let me tie it back to those. So I've noticed in the field of cryptocurrency, if you notice any of those 8 karmic wins being blown subtly through your body, you know, it's a good moment to pause and be like, why am I doing this? What's my intention behind this? And I think there's a beautiful confluence of a lot of these worlds kind of moving closer together. It doesn't feel like worlds are going farther apart, right? Whatever you're interested in, whatever it is, like music, all these things are slowly, seemingly moving together. So I encourage you to look for those worlds moving together in your lives. That's it for this episode. Stay tuned for new music, new guests, new fun times. If you're interested in CryptoSync, we're setting up a referral system. So if you have a friend who's in there, get in touch with that friend, because then they'll get some of your entry fees for going in. And the reason I only mention CryptoSync on this podcast and my Twitter, and I haven't even done that, is I don't want the floodgates to be open. I don't want people signing up who just want to make a ton of money really quickly. This is a community-based endeavor. I posted on my personal Facebook of all the communities I've built up. This one, Synchronicity, is obviously my favorite, but what this morphed into was CryptoSync, and it's so pleasant. It's just a really nice group of people who are helping each other. We have a peer-to-peer exchange in there. It's awesome. So I'm just really grateful for the opportunity. I know a lot of you longtime listeners heard me go through a pretty difficult financial period, which was affecting many aspects of my life over the past 2 years, essentially. And, for those of you who are in that situation and are feeling stuck, know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And no, I don't know your personal situation, but I know how this stuff tends to work, on a cosmic sense. And sometimes you got to hit those lows if you want to hit those highs. Now, be wary of people who are telling you that, who are keeping you low. You want to say, you got to hit low to hit high, but recognize that when you hit these lows, in whatever aspect of your life, usually there's a reversal, right? And the market teaches us this too. So that's it. Thank you, and I will see you next week.